In this series, we're going to take a look at the Pokemon TCG World Champions, the Master Divisions. If you're like me, you grew up playing the TCG game, but you might not necessarily have played it or realised how big of an impact it had tournament and competitive wise and how big of a game it actually was. For me, honestly, I just collected the cards. But we're going to delve into some of the more experienced players, some of the better players, as they've crafted a world which is now, it's huge, honestly. Pokemon is one of the biggest things of all time, and the TCG is a massive part of that. So this is where the true Pokemon world as we know it now started. And we're going to run from here till the current day, and hopefully by the time I've got to this year, it'll be in time for this year's World Championships. I don't know if that's going to be possible. If this goes out and it's something you guys want to see, then obviously I will make sure I can do that. Not to put any pressure on anyone. Also in the comments, if you had any experience with Worlds 2004 on, obviously, I would love to put them in upcoming videos. So let me know maybe decks you've played, experiences you've had, or any comments on champions or decks that were played. I didn't really get into the game heavily until like 2012. With Mewtwo, Darkrai, that kind of thing, and the EX Pokemon. So any stuff you guys want to add, I'm more than happy to take and put into upcoming videos, because I do want this to be more of a community thing and how the game was at the time. But let's get into this video as we take a look at the 2004 Pokemon World Championships Master Division, when Team Magma dominated. Now, it's worth noting there were some world events before. They were not official Pokemon as we know them now. Stuff like Metal Chansey was quite popular. The deck was built around the double edge attack on Chansey and using stuff like energy to reduce the amount of damage dealt to itself. If you want more information on this, I would say go check out PTCG Radio. Not only for this deck and other deck lists, but it is one of the best Pokemon channels on YouTube, so make sure you subscribe there. But that's not what we're going to go into. We're going to go into the first official Worlds, as Tsuguyoshi Yamato was the champion with his Groudon deck, titled Magma Spirit. We're going to break down his deck and how it worked, his run to the final, and his opponent, Chris Fulop, taking a look at his deck and some of the other viable decks at the time as he ran Blaziken tech. So with the focus of these videos heavily on the champion and the winner and the event itself, let's start by taking a look at the Magma Spirit deck. Now in this, the main attacker was a Groudon, focusing on Pulverize. Things like Desert Ruins would drop damage counters, meaning Pulverize would hit for more damage. Normally a knockout at this point, obviously the health is not what it is today. Groudon needed multiple Magma Pokemon out to be able to do this. There was plenty of search to get them into play quickly, with Team Magma Conspirator, Team Magma Ball, etc. There was also some shenanigans with Claydol moving energy around, and Mr. Briney's Compassion clearing damage tokens by putting them back in hand. Using Camerup's Poker Power, which is basically an ability now, meant you could search out energy, move it around and repeat this. And if necessary, cleaning up a damage Camerupt with Mr. Briney's. One thing I did find very interesting, as I wasn't playing in this era, at least nowhere near this standard, was how most Poker Powers had the stipulation that they couldn't be used whilst being affected by special conditions. If you have any idea, let me know in the comments below. But yeah, I did think that was strange, as most Poker Powers said the same thing. Now, obviously he managed to win the game and go down in history as the first ever Pokemon champion. However, he did have an opponent, again, very impressive to get to this point, and that was Blaziken tech. Designed by Chris Fulop, his deck revolved around a lot of Poker Powers too, favouring Blaziken and Blaziken EX, along with a few cards to help heal, namely Blossom and Pokemon Nurse, which would discard all energy. However, you can move energy around again using Manectric. So both decks did feel quite similar. It's a concept we saw in the winner's deck as well, basically refreshing their Pokemon to prevent opponents taking prizes. We do see a few more techs in this deck, which is where it's got its name, Blaziken Tech. If you're not familiar with the term, basically a tech card is put in to try and plug a weakness of the deck, or counter something you might face in the metagame. We haven't even touched on its main attacker yet though, and that was Blaziken EX. Now this is lowercase EX, as we did get the capital EX later on. Basically, the regular Blaziken could attach energy to a Pokemon on the bench, speeding up setup for Blaziken EX, which could hit a Pokemon active or on the bench for 100 damage. Now at this point, that is a massive hit, considering most Pokemon are around 100 to 150 health. Obviously, with a massive 150 HP on Blaziken and assisted healing, it was a monster to take down. Obviously, only one man could do it, and it was Yamato himself in the final, being the only one to find a way. Now, I wish there was more information. There's some info on other decks played, but there's not really a list or anywhere I can find anything more than that. Obviously, being the first ever World Championship, they maybe didn't expect it to be what it is today and still runs, bringing in players from all over the world. It's kind of unfortunate, but as we go forward, obviously the impact it had, there is a lot more information and a lot more we can delve into. Of the decks we do have information on, one was Reed Weichler's. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. Apologies for any mispronunciations. I'm trying my best on this. He ran Rocky Beach, which was a Swampert EX deck. It had Suicune EX in as well, so it had the water attackers. But also it ran, the Swampert EX was actually a fighting type. So it had the Swampert regulars as water. I do really like that when you can evolve into two good versions of a Pokemon. At the minute, I would say a similar thing would be something like Shady Dealings, Inteleon, and then Quick Thinking Inteleon. Having two options makes decks so much more interesting, gives you more options, and yeah, this is one of my favorite decks from this era, just for that very reason. I feel it's very consistent because you've got the regular, obviously, Mudkips and Marshtomps, but then you can vary it slightly more as they evolve. Unlike some of the other decks which just ran different Pokemon, meaning you had to run more energy, meaning you had to run more varieties of energy as well, making it slightly less consistent. The fourth and final deck released as a World Championship deck. If you're not sure what they are, basically they're decks based on the things people played, so the World Champions will get their own deck. They aren't legal for play, so if you do buy one, it is just for fun. It's to have that memory and that. And to try the deck out in casual play, I do think it is a really cool product, but they do run quite expensive if you don't get them at a time. So basically though, Team Rushdown was Kevin Wen's deck, full of a ton of cards like God of War EX, again, very interesting card. You're trying to boost energy to this Pokemon as it is an absolute monster. Very similar to something like the Blaziken deck, where you're going to have one big attacker and a ton of stuff to sort of throw your opponent off and help build your main attacker. Very interestingly though, Reed and Kevin were actually the runners-up in both of their divisions, so the 11 to 14 and 10 and under. So it's strange how those decks were made. Again, there is no information I can find on what decks the winners ran, but I would assume, because they've not been made themselves, that they are going to be similar decks to stuff we've already seen. Yamato himself does still play the game, and he has appeared in recent live streams by Pokemon themselves, so I think that's kind of cool. He has also come back to a few top fours in the following years, so you might hear his name mentioned again. I think obviously winning the World Championship is incredible any year, but to be the first to ever do it and someone to consistently come back and show their name is a really impressive feat, and one that is well deserved by Yamato. Hopefully you've enjoyed this video. Hopefully it's a concept you want to see going forward. So like I say, if it is, let me know, leave a like, leave a comment, because it is something I would like to do. So if you guys want to see it, I definitely will. That's all I've got for this episode though. Thank you if you've made it to this point, and I will catch you in the next one.